My best friend attacked me and tried to kill me because he has feelings for my girlfriend, with whom I had been in a relationship for 5 years. I am 27 years old, and Mark is 26. We became best friends when we were 16, brought together by our shared ambition for the same career. After years of struggle and countless rejections, my career finally started gaining momentum over the past year, while things weren't going so well for Mark. I spent a lot of time helping him, especially in the last year, trying to support and inspire him. We even lived as neighbors, in the same apartment from the age of 20 to 23, sharing everything. However, about 6 months ago, his attitude toward me changed dramatically. He started making sarcastic remarks and saying demeaning things. I tried to ignore these minor issues, attributing them to his jealousy and struggles, making an effort to understand his situation. I knew that working in this field was a tough environment full of rejections, and watching a friend suddenly achieve the success you always dreamed of must have been hard. I had a girlfriend, Emily, 26 years old. I thought we had a perfect relationship. We had been together for 5 years, had great communication, and a wonderful, intimate life. She supported me through all these difficult years while I fought my way into the professional world. I always shared everything with her. We had no secrets, so I thought. I believed we were completely honest with each other. I made an effort to keep our relationship fresh and exciting, going on dates once or twice a week, surprising her with gifts, planning trips, and doing activities together, like cooking and dance classes. I loved spending time with her, took an interest in her hobbies, and did everything to make sure she knew she was my most important person. I felt like she reciprocated those feelings. Even when my career took off, I never placed her or my friends in the background. For me, happiness required a balance between work and personal life. Last week, we were at our friend's house, Tom and Katie, both 27. They had recently bought a home, and we were all sitting outside in their yard, drinking together with Bill, 26, and Jane, 27. We've all been friends for 7 years. As we were chatting, Mark got drunk quickly and spent the whole evening making snide remarks toward me. After 6 months of this behavior, I finally had enough. Others also told him to tone it down because he was trying to mask his comments as jokes, but in reality, he was being rude and offensive. As midnight approached, I was slightly intoxicated myself and finally snapped, telling him exactly what I thought. It escalated into an argument. I believed all of this was due to his jealousy over my success. I told Mark that it wasn't my fault he lacked the talent to succeed, and reminded him of everything I had done to help him. That's when he attacked me. We shoved each other a bit before he managed to knock me down, kicked me in the ribs a couple of times, and then tried to stomp on my head. Luckily, he didn't land with full force, but the sole of his boot scraped my cheek. Even that was enough to leave my cheek swollen to this day. He tried again, but I managed to dodge in time, and his heel struck the ground with immense force just inches from my face. If he had hit my head, he could have fractured my skull or even killed me. At that moment, the others intervened. I got up and yelled that he had lost his mind. Mark seemed like he was about to leave, but then he grabbed a wooden plank. Tom and Katie were renovating their fence and building a shed in the garden and charged at me again, aiming for my head. I barely managed to duck and raise my arm, and he struck my elbow with full force. Once again, he could have killed me. For a brief second, things got out of control. He nearly hit Jane while swinging the plank. That's when Tom and Bill tackled him and beat him severely, fueled by their rage over what had just happened. The girls managed to pull them off him, and as the reality of what had just occurred set in, we all fell into an emotional chaos. Mark sat down, and Emily sat next to him. His face was bloodied, but he was conscious. Katie took him to the hospital and only returned in the morning. Mark had a broken nose and a mild concussion. After receiving medical attention, she drove him to his parents' house. According to her, Mark barely spoke to her, didn't explain himself, and didn't even apologize. None of us slept that night, and honestly, after all that stress, everything became a blur for me. Probably a mix of alcohol, shock, and adrenaline. But then, things got even worse. You might have noticed that I haven't mentioned Emily for a while. As we sat there, Tom said something like, "Mark deserved worse than a broken nose for trying to kill you twice and nearly hurting Jane." That's when Emily, who had been silent until then, suddenly exploded. She started defending Mark, saying he didn't deserve all of this and that he was just going through a tough time in his life. Tom and Emily almost started a full-blown argument, after which Emily ran out of the room. I followed her, thinking, okay, we're all in shock and sleep-deprived right now, and decided to try and comfort her. I found her in the guest room, crying. I told her that I understood we had all gone through a shock and that maybe we should try to get some rest. She didn't even look at me. And then, suddenly, it hit me. Last night, Mark and Emily had been sitting next to each other. It wasn't the first time. Every time Mark lashed out at me, Emily was there pulling him by the arm, begging him to take a walk with her to calm down. She was comforting him, not me. Even after Mark kicked me, tried to stomp on my head, and swung a wooden plank at me, her focus was entirely on him. While I was lying there in pain, she didn't even check on me. When the guys started beating Mark, she screamed in hysterics, trying to pull them off him, but I couldn't remember a single time that she had asked if I was okay. I looked at her and asked, "Are you cheating on me with Mark?" She broke down into uncontrollable sobs, repeatedly saying she never wanted things to go this far. That was all the answer I needed. I lost it. I started yelling, demanding to know what was going on and how she could do this to me. The others came in, and the guys pulled me into another room to calm me down, while Jane and Katie took Emily to her parents' house. Jane stayed with her, worried about her state. Emily cried so hard on the way there that she couldn't even speak. When they arrived, Jane and Emily's father had to help her upstairs and put her to bed because she could barely stand. She was in complete hysteria. The only thing she managed to say, or rather, scream, was that she had ruined everything. Jane stayed with her because her parents were terrified. They had never seen her like this before. Jane and Katie told them what had happened between Mark and me. Everything seemed to revolve around Mark and Emily's affair. It has been 5 days. I am still in both physical and emotional pain. I feel overwhelming anger and confusion. My elbow is fractured. I have bruised ribs, and the right side of my face is still swollen. That night keeps replaying in my head over and over again. I sent Emily several messages asking for an explanation, but she didn't respond. Then, this morning, her mother called me. Honestly, her parents are amazing people. They've always been kind to me and have helped me a lot over the years. She was incredibly apologetic for her daughter's actions and was very understanding. Then she told me that Emily wanted to see me and talk. She asked if I could come. I agreed. When I arrived, her parents said they would wait outside in the car to give us space, but because of Emily's condition, they didn't want to go far. I stepped into the house, and when I saw Emily, I was overwhelmed with emotions, anger, bitterness, and then I felt sorry for her. I just wanted to hold her. She looked awful. It seemed like she hadn't eaten, showered, or slept since that night. Seeing her in that state hurt me so much that I barely stopped myself from going over and hugging her. Instead, I just sat across from her. She said I could ask her anything and that she would be honest. Then she kept repeating how sorry she was and how she had ruined everyone's lives. I won't go into too much detail to keep this from dragging on, but essentially, a year ago, Mark confessed his love for Emily and had been incredibly persistent ever since. She said she made it clear that she didn't feel the same way. I asked why she never told me. She said she didn't want to ruin our friendship and hoped things would just settle on their own. Over the past few months, he had become more aggressive, constantly asking her to leave me for him. I asked if anything had happened between them. She admitted that they had kissed twice. Both times Mark initiated it, but she stopped him. Once, they were watching a movie together, and he tried to take things further, but she left and set clear boundaries. I asked why she kept meeting him alone if he repeatedly tried to kiss her and push for something more. She said that every time, he promised it wouldn't happen again. I asked why she didn't cut off contact with him, why she kept responding to his messages, meeting with him, and giving him false hope. Did she enjoy the attention? That's when she said something strange. She said she felt sorry for him, that she felt responsible for him, like an older sister. What the hell? She said she just wanted to help him through a rough time in his life. In fact, she even tried setting him up with one of her friends, but he ruined it with his awful behavior. I asked if she was really so naive that she didn't realize her actions were only fueling his hopes and feelings. She broke down in even worse sobs, insisting that they had a brother-sister relationship, that she just wanted to fix everything, that Mark was struggling and she was trying to help him get back on his feet. But he kept pushing, becoming more persistent, and started talking badly about me, saying that I didn't deserve her. She said she regretted everything, called herself foolish, and admitted that she had ruined everything and handled it in the worst possible way. But she insisted that she acted with good intentions, never realizing she was only making things worse. I then asked if she had contacted Mark after that night. She hesitated awkwardly. Then, she broke down into even heavier sobs and admitted that she had. That completely destroyed me. This man had spent years trying to win her over. He had tried to kill me. And I had waited 5 days for her to respond to me only to find out she had been talking to him instead. I couldn't say anything. All I wanted was to hurt her not physically, but emotionally. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. So I stood up and walked away. She begged me to stay, offered to show me the messages, swore that she had only wanted to check how he was, and then told him it was over, that he needed to leave her alone. But to me, she had already made her choice. While I was going through the worst moment of my life, she still chose to speak to him. I walked out, and Emily followed. I'm not proud of this, but her mother and father had just stepped out of their car and asked if everything was all right. That's when I lost it. I started shouting, cursing, screaming that their daughter had destroyed my life. How could she choose the man who had tried to smash my skull instead of me? I was so furious that I couldn't even drive. I just kept walking away. I don't know how long I walked, but eventually, Emily's father pulled up beside me and told me to get in the car. I got in, expecting him to yell at me or lecture me. But bliss is here that didn't. He just drove me home. We didn't speak the entire way, but when he stopped in front of my house, he placed a hand on my shoulder. I couldn't even look him in the eye after everything I had just said. Later, Emily sent me screenshots of her conversation with Mark. They seemed to confirm her version of the story, that she only checked on him and then told him she couldn't stay in contact anymore. She also wrote that she would never forgive him for attacking me. She even sent other screenshots from their past conversations. Most of them showed her telling him to stop, that she had no feelings for him, rejecting his advances. But considering they had been talking for over a year, I knew she could have easily picked out the messages that made her look better while leaving out the rest. I haven't replied, and honestly, I probably never will. I want to block her. But for some reason, I haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet. I feel betrayed. I feel angry. I feel like a terrible person. I want Emily and Mark to suffer. I want them to feel the same pain I'm feeling. I know that's unhealthy, but I can't help it. I hope that by writing all of this online, even if no one ever reads it, I can start to process what happened. How did my life go from being close to perfect to this? How do I even begin to move forward? It feels like I will never be happy again. This pain feels like it will never go away. How do you even cope with something like this? I feel like I lost everything. The people I love with all my heart now only make me feel hatred. I know Emily insists that she never physically cheated, but I'm not stupid. Even if they never slept together, she still betrayed me just like Mark did. I don't think I will ever be able to forgive them. I can't even imagine a future where I'd consider trying to. So, if any of you have ever been betrayed by a partner, a friend, or both, what do I do next? Where do I even start to stop thinking about this and try to live my life again? Update. I need your advice again. A lot of you asked for an update, so I'll try to explain. But I won't go into too many details to keep things focused on what I actually need help with. First, Mark. Many of you said I should press charges. I don't know. Maybe it's because a lot of you are Americans and have too much faith in the justice system, or maybe you just watch too many legal dramas. That's not how it works here. I consulted with 2 lawyers, and here's the reality. I could file charges, but the likelihood of Mark actually going to jail is very low. The most probable outcome? He would have to cover legal fees and possibly pay me compensation. Maybe a significant amount. Maybe not. Since my injuries weren't severe, the judge would most likely base the decision on actual damages. My friends could testify against him, but Mark would probably get probation, at most not prison time. So yes, I could ruin him financially. But he could also file a counterclaim against Tom and Bill. And for them, the legal consequences could be much worse, since they broke his nose and he had a concussion. The legal process could drag on for months, maybe even years. And honestly, I just want this all to be over. Mark's reputation has already taken a hit. He's lost some friends, though some are trying to stay neutral. His older brother said that he and their parents were disappointed in him, but nothing more than that. However, his younger sister took it much harder. She used to joke that she saw me as her older brother, and she used to admire Emily. Now, she has completely cut ties with Mark. Mark sent me a long letter apologizing, but he never mentioned Emily. Not even once. He only apologized for his actions toward me for the attack. His apology seemed sincere. He took responsibility for a lot of things, though he still blamed some of it on his mental health struggles. I haven't responded, and I don't plan to. Now, Jane and Katie, some of you suspected that they knew more than they let on, or that they had been supporting Emily. So I decided to act like I didn't know anything and casually asked them if they had noticed any red flags about Mark and Emily's relationship. And yes, they did know that Mark had kissed Emily, but they claimed they had no idea how deep the problem actually went. They said they only knew that Mark and Emily had been spending time together and that Emily had told them about the kiss but reassured them she had handled it. I don't fully believe that this was all they knew, especially after Jane got extremely defensive when I started asking more questions. This triggered a chain reaction. Tom got angry at Jane for keeping it from him and started suspecting she was hiding even more. It caused a rift in their relationship. I'm trying not to get involved, but I told Tom not to be mad at her because of me. Katie, on the other hand, came to my house herself to talk. She said she truly didn't know anything and had only accidentally overheard a conversation about Mark and Emily. Later, when she asked Jane about it, Jane told her that Emily had handled the situation. Katie swore that she had interpreted it as Emily telling me everything. Beyond that, she claimed to know nothing else. I believed her. She seemed sincere and genuinely apologetic. Unlike Jane, I don't hate Jane, and I'm not angry at her, but I am disappointed in how she handled everything. That's why I stopped talking to her over the past few weeks. I just don't feel the need to. This has slightly affected my friendship with Tom, as I've been spending more time with other people. Emily, where do I even begin? Many people advised me to cut off all contact with her, but I know myself I would have lost my mind if I couldn't get closure and understand what really happened. Someone wrote to me, saying that facing problems head-on helped them, and that approach resonated with me more than completely severing ties. Even though I had planned to cut communication after our last meeting, I also needed to apologize to Emily's parents and pick up my car, which was still parked near their house. So, 4 days after everything happened, I called them and asked for permission to come over to talk to them and see Emily. They actually seemed happy about it. I got the feeling they thought I was going to forgive her or something. When I arrived, we talked. I apologized. They told me they were disappointed and shocked that I had yelled at them and said such hurtful things, but they understood that I had been in a bad emotional state. We hugged. Then, they stepped outside again, leaving me alone in the living room, where Emily was waiting. She walked toward me with the saddest expression I had ever seen and asked me to hold her. I refused. I told her to sit down so we could talk. I asked her to tell me everything again. Then, I asked if Mark had been abusive in any way. As Jane and Katie had hinted, she repeated what she had said before but added a few more details. She admitted that she hadn't fully realized the situation at the time, that she had felt responsible for everything. But the real reason she couldn't tell me the truth was Mark himself. He had threatened to tell me about their kisses himself. He had said he would tell me they were in love, that she was cheating on me. When she tried to cut off contact, he told her he would do it would ruin our relationship and my friendship with him. He was sure I would believe him over her. She felt cornered, like she had no choice but to handle everything on her own. I asked if he had ever been physically aggressive with her. She hesitated. Then, she said not exactly, but that he had hurt her twice. Once, at an event we had attended together, he had pulled her aside and asked her if she really didn't love him. When she said no and tried to leave, he grabbed her wrist, wouldn't let go, and pulled her closer, hurting her. I remembered that night. Halfway through the event, Emily had suddenly become quiet and distracted, but when I asked, she had just said she was tired. The second time had been similar. They were alone, and he had grabbed her arm so hard that she had bruises. But I never saw any bruises. I would have noticed. I would have asked. Maybe she hid them. I also asked if there really had been no intimacy. His intentions were obvious, so why did she keep putting herself in situations where she was alone with him? She just said she didn't know, that she had been stupid, but that nothing ever happened between them. I asked why he had so much control over her, why she hadn't found the strength to tell me the truth for an entire year. Why had she believed I would take his side over hers? She kept saying she didn't know, that she just kept making mistakes. I asked why she ignored me after Mark attacked Mabu continued talking to him. She cried and kept repeating, "I don't know." She said she had believed our relationship was strong enough to survive this, and that she was more worried about what Mark might do. I told her that that was what hurt me the most. She had worried more about him than about me. To me, that meant she had chosen him. She snapped, insisting she hadn't chosen him. But I stood my ground. To me, that's exactly what it looked like. Then, I explained how deeply they had both hurt me, that all trust was gone, that our relationship was over. She asked if there was any chance that, someday in the future, we could be a part of each other's lives again. I told her no, but something about her story still didn't sit right with me. Too many details still felt off. So, I decided to reach out to Sarah Hemley's best friend. I told her I was completely shattered, that I felt like nobody was telling me the whole truth, and I begged her to be honest. To my surprise as she was, she knew a lot, but Emily had kept her in the dark about several things. Sarah knew about Mark. She had begged Emily to stop talking to him and to tell me what was going on. She knew about the kisses. She said Emily regretted them and had stopped things before they went any further. Then, Sarah said something that completely shocked me. At the beginning of all this, Emily had felt needed. She liked our dynamic when I had struggled with my career, when I had needed her support. Not that I was constantly relying on her emotionally or financially, but there were many times when she had been my rock. She had lifted me up, encouraged me, made me believe in myself, and helped me push forward. But when my career took off, that dynamic disappeared. Then, Mark ended up in the same position I had been in before, and that let Emily feel needed again. I was stunned. Sarah said she had also been shocked when she found out. I asked if Emily had felt needed because Mark wanted her. Sarah said Emily had never admitted that, but after knowing her for 20 years, she suspected it played a role. Since then, I've noticed that Sarah has started showing interest in me. She texts me every day. At first, it was just asking how I was. Then, she started sending me memes. Then, memes with subtle sexual undertones. But I have no interest in her. So I think I'm going to have to shut that down before she gets the wrong idea. Emily. Again. I finally cut contact. I blocked her everywhere on every app and social media platform. We had always communicated through those, so we rarely used our actual phone numbers. Maybe I just forgot to block her number. Or maybe, subconsciously, I didn't want to. Then, she texted me. "How are you?" She followed it up by saying that, for the first time in a long time, she had smiled and laughed because of me. She attached a picture of my face on her television screen and wrote that she was proud of me, that she couldn't wait to see my career grow. "I made a mistake," I replied. For 2 days we talked, not about us, but about politics and random topics. I kept my distance. If she messaged, I only responded when I felt like it. Then she asked, "Do you think, in some small way, I could ever be a part of your life again?" I told her that I needed more time, but it was unlikely. I added that, for the sake of my mental health, I couldn't continue communicating with her. I said goodbye and blocked her. Just when I thought everything was finally over, last Friday, around midnight, there was a knock at my door. Emily was standing outside, soaked to the bone from the rain like something straight out of a movie scene. I asked her, "What the hell are you doing here?" She said she had been at a bar, drinking, and wanted to see me. But as soon as she stepped out of the taxi, she lost her nerve. She stood outside for 10 minutes, but eventually, it got too cold to wait for another ride. I let her in. I gave her an old pair of sweatpants, a t-shirt, and a hoodie, then put her wet clothes in a bag. She told me her friends had insisted she go out for a girls' night, even though she didn't feel ready. But she went anyway. They were drinking, and she ordered her favorite cocktail, the one she always got when we were together. We used to have a habit of texting each other throughout the night, sending funny stories, making jokes about what was happening, or sharing pictures of our drinks. We were that couple, the ones always on their phones, talking to each other even when we were apart. And in that moment, she instinctively reached for her phone to send me a picture only, to realize she could never do that again. A wave of sadness hit her, so she drank more. Then, despite telling her friends she wasn't interested in meeting anyone, they still invited some guys over. One of them was told Emily was single, and he started flirting with her, trying to get her attention. Her friends kept creating situations to leave them alone together. She said she couldn't take it anymore. She also said the guy was boring, unattractive, pathetic, and uninteresting. Emily rarely talks about people like that. That's when I realized she was somewhere between slightly and moderately drunk. Normally, in that state, she was cheerful and talkative. But this time, she was completely cold and distant. She never once looked me in the eyes unlike during our last conversation, when her gaze was filled with regret and sadness. She spoke in a flat, almost monotone voice, something I had never seen from her before. It was like she was a completely different person. I was exhausted, confused, and my thoughts just shut down. She just sat there in silence. I opened my taxi app to book her a ride home, but after 15 minutes, the app was still searching for a driver. I sighed and thought, screw it. I offered to drive her home myself. I didn't think leaving her at my place was a good idea. I suspected that was her plan, and I wanted to see if she would admit it. But she just grabbed her things and walked straight to my car. No objections, no explanations. In the car, the atmosphere was just as distant. Emily asked if she could pick the music. I agreed. Then, she asked, "Can I hold your hand one last time?" Like an idiot, I said yes. She just sat there, staring out the window, never once looking at me. Her behavior confused me. Trying to lighten the mood, I awkwardly joked, "I can take you back to your friends. Maybe Mr. Pathetic is still there." She just shrugged and said, "I'm done with men forever. They only betray my trust, manipulate my emotions, and take advantage of my kindness. They always put me in impossible situations." I didn't know if she meant me, Mark, or both of us. I asked why she thought that. She just shrugged again and said, "I just do." She also told me that Mark had sent her a letter asking her to move to another country with him, but she had thrown it away. After that, we just drove in silence. When we pulled up to her parents' house, I felt her squeeze my hand as if she didn't want to let go. When I stopped the car, she said nothing. She just got out and walked inside without even looking back at me. When I got home, of course, I found her underwear in my bathroom, not in the laundry basket, but next to it, where clothes sometimes fall. Common sense tells me she left it there on purpose. She knows how laundry falls. Now, it's just one more thing for me to obsess over. Now, I have her underwear, and she has my clothes. A perfect excuse to see each other again. I was completely confused, and honestly, a little unnerved by how strange Emily had been that night. I even wondered if she had been under the influence of something else. She was that different. I thought about asking Sarah, but I didn't want to drag her into this mess, the way I had been dragged in. I was naive enough to unblock Emily everywhere, because deep down, I truly believed she would text me to apologize for showing up drunk. Emily would have done that before. I also noticed that she had completely changed her Instagram. She removed her bio. She deleted almost all of her photos. Her account used to be cute and creative. Now, only 2 old pictures remained. Almost all the photos with other people and nearly all of our pictures together were gone, except for one. A photo of us on vacation 2 years ago. We had both called that trip the best time of our lives. I thought I had started moving forward. But now, I can't stop thinking about her again. The truth is, I really miss Emily. She's a truly unique person. I always knew how lucky I was to have her in my life. And despite spending an entire month hating her, feeling betrayed and angry seeing her on Friday, remembering her sobbing at her parents' house, I realized something. I hate seeing her like this. There was a time when I thought her suffering would bring me satisfaction. But now, I just worry about her more than I feel anger. I admit it, when Emily squeezed my hand in the car, I felt butterflies. For a moment, I thought about all our happy times. Then, I felt dread. I don't want her to destroy herself with guilt and regret for the rest of her life. We all make mistakes. I'm starting to believe that Mark was abusive. That makes me consider pressing charges against him not for myself, but for what he did to Emily. She was trapped by his threats, by the fear of losing everything. But at the same time, when everything escalated, she chose to comfort him instead of me. I keep replaying that moment over and over. And her visit on Friday? It felt a little manipulative. Showing up soaking wet, leaving her underwear behind, acting so strangely. But then, sometimes just for a few minutes, I stop caring about all of that. And all I want is for Emily to be part of my life again. As my girlfriend, I'm lost. Should I cut her off completely, be strong, and move on? Or should I reach out, be honest, and see if we can work through this? Or should I rise above all of this, meet with her one last time, and finally close this chapter while easing her guilt so she doesn't destroy herself over it? Even if that means lying to her, pretending it didn't hurt me as much as it did, as you can see, I have no idea what to do. I hope, like last time, someone will give me advice that helps me figure out the right path forward. And that's where the story ends. I know you probably wanted to hear how it all turned out, but unfortunately, this is all we have. It seems like the author made their own decision and didn't feel the need to share any further updates. Let me know in the comments what you think of this whole situation. For me, it's just too unclear. Did she actually cheat, or didn't she? Would you have taken her back? I think the author did. Why? Because of how he started praising her. That's what happens when we still have feelings for someone. Our emotions cloud our judgment. But logically, I think he should have let her go.